From launch to luxury, the long journey to rewards. Hello, everyone. My name is Tessa. I'm the Director of Marketing at IdeaPros, and I have Fred Cary. Hello, Fred.
Hey there.
Fred is CEO of IdeaPros, and we're talking about a subject today that I think is really, really important because we have a lot of partners that work with us and all of you entrepreneurs out there that are going to be launching something. And there's this expectation that you're going to launch and everything's going to be just rosy, right, Fred? Like everything is perfect, money starts rolling in, and turns out that's not always the case. In fact, most of the time it's not the case, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hi everybody. Basically, my focus here today is really to set expectations, and as you said, not only for our own partners, but really for any entrepreneur that's out there, because I think social media actually has done a big disservice to all of us entrepreneurs. You know, when I was growing up, and when many of you were growing up, you were thinking about somebody who is like really wealthy or well known, whatever. We were thinking about the doctors and lawyers and local business owner and movie stars and athletes. But lately, the allure of being an entrepreneur, who's always been the backbone of America, but that allure is front and center with social media, with the 24-year-old kid with his rented Lamborghini sitting in front of a mansion that's probably not his or hers, talking about how easy it is to go take 3 courses and become this multimillionaire. And so we have the sense that things are immediate and that we can start a business and throw a tiny bit of money into it and start making a whole lot of money right away and changing our lives. And that's not what the journey is at all. It's long and it's arduous, and there's a lot of heartache and heartbreak and anger and failure, and you have to have the resilience to keep going. Um, one of the one of the mistakes I made, I think, with my own company is to try to take some of that pain away from the entrepreneurs who are our partners. Some of them, most of them, share that pain with me when we have a delay or when the app doesn't work right or when our manufacturer gives us a prototype that's not at all what we expected. The types of things that happen for every single business. For me, my heartache is that a lot of times that's multiplied times 300 or 400 when I'm not only sharing that burden with our partners, but carrying the brunt of it when there's extra expenses and things like that. So flaw in my model. I think that in the future, as we bring in new partners and everything, we're going to make them feel more of the pain because that's really the centerpiece of becoming an entrepreneur and having a successful business. Because when we launch our businesses with IdeaPros, then our partner becomes the CEO and they're responsible, and they need to get used to the fact that heartache and bumps and bruises are all part of the process and the road to success. So I,
Right.
I thought
So they
that,
don't just run, they're going to have to crawl and walk and then run. So we were
well,
trying to make it to just carry them and then, okay, now run. So,
and what I'm more worried about is running away instead of running, right? And because when the biggest thing that all of us carry with us, no matter how successful we ever get, is this self doubt. We all have self doubt. In fact, the smarter you are, the more likely, the more self doubt you're going to have because you're constantly challenging yourself and you're constantly trying to do better and you're constantly telling yourself, I know I could work harder, I could have done this, or I could have done that, or I shouldn't have done this other thing. And so when you couple that self doubt with a point of failure, the chance is that you're going to stop. And the fact is, if you look at the data, 55% of Americans have started their own business. 55% of adult Americans. I'm not talking about the lemon stand that you did when you were 7 or 8 years old. I'm talking about over half of Americans have started their own business. And yet, on any given moment in time, only 17% of Americans identify themselves as being an entrepreneur. And so there's this built-in enormous failure rate, and a lot of that failure rate is because we don't understand how difficult the journey is, and we look at that first failure and couple that with our self-doubt and realize that wrongly realize that I shouldn't have done this. I'm going to go back to my cushy 9 to 5 job.
I have a little graphic and I'm going to put it up right now because I think it's pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
There we go. It's like they're giving up too early. They were right there. They're putting in all this time and then they just don't take it that little extra bit. They just let their fears take over. So I had to show it's my favorite little image. It reminds me that I have to get up and just brush myself off and keep going.
Yeah, and I'm going to go and let me give an example of a few different companies and just talk a little bit about the journey that they went on, just so we can see, because we look at some of these icons around the world, these household names, and we don't understand the struggle that they all went through. And I've talked about this some in prior shows, but let's really hone in on a few of some of the biggest, because we all have heard the story about FedEx and this guy Frederick Smith, who basically wrote a paper at Yale University about FedEx, and the story goes that the professors said that was an awful thing and a horrible idea that would never work. It proves that part of it is pretty much debunked. But
It sounds like you have
I have dogs running around this room in the middle of our lives. So
That's fun. I
hopefully,
have puppies back here. So, between
yeah,
the two of us, this is very real.
hopefully we can eliminate that. But we
Not the dogs, the sound.
a live show right now and just get Louis out of there. Um, so anyway, FedEx did his paper, but then went on to start his own business and decided that, you know what, this is a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and invest in it. And he took $4 million of his own money, $90 million from investors, and he founded his company in 1971. A few years later, he had $5,000 in the bank account. Didn't get anywhere. He took his money, his $5,000, went to Vegas and played blackjack and won $24,000, which was enough to cover the cost of fuel and keep the company afloat for another week.
We're not recommending it. You book your trip to Vegas. No.
I am. I'm
Fred's
saying,
like, do it.
I'm saying that you got to do whatever you got to do, even when it feels like it's the very end and you should quit and you're not going to make it. He got enough money to last for 1 week, and in that 1 week, he was able to raise another $11 million and keep the company growing. And they made their first profit in 1975, I think it was. That was many years after he first came up with the idea, and 5 years after they launched. That's when they made their first profit. Okay, so it took them 5 years to make a profit. A lot of heartache, almost bankruptcy, gambling in Vegas to try to last for another week. And so that's a story. If you look at FedEx, every time the FedEx truck goes by or comes to your house and makes a delivery, if you think of that story, then you can understand the struggle that people need to make in order to become successful. Amazon owns the world. Half of e-commerce goes through Amazon. If you don't have a FedEx truck coming to your house, you definitely have an Amex truck coming to your house. Well, he started selling books online in his garage, 1994. Went out and bought used books, sold them. That was the first business that he had. But he had a vision that he was going to be able to sell everything. And he started with books because those were the easiest to get. You could get as many of them as you needed, and they were pretty easy to sell online. But that was 94. and he did really well with the books. And 2 years later, by '96, I think his sales were $15 million. And people were intrigued with the fact that now you're able to do all this stuff online. He was one of the first. But by the end of the decade, his revenues had exploded. I think 1999 there were over $1 billion in revenue, but he lost over $700 million. So he got $1 billion in, but his losses were over $700 billion, and things didn't get better um, in 2000, because then you had the dot-com crash had taken place, and they had about $300 million in cash, which to all of us is a ton of money, but they had raised billions of dollars by that period of time. And it wasn't until 2003, many years later, 9 years after
Yeah.
found, they actually was able to turn a profit, and he was already public at that period of time.
Yeah, 7 years after going public, he was 2003. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and you can look up Turner Broadcasting. You can look up ESPN. Um, all the same sort of thing. Another company that we're always raving about is Tesla Motors and Elon Musk. Um, that was incorporated in 2003. And a year later, Musk came in, made an investment in it, and became the chairman of the board of that company. And that was 2003. 2009. Okay, now they're trying to operate for 6 years. 2009, they got a $400 million grant from the government. No, it was a loan from the government, from the Department of Energy, and they went public the following year, almost immediately. But it was 2013, 10 years later, that they got their first profit. And now I think they're at the point where they're still not making profits, or the profits have really declined. But the revenue keeps going up every year. But here you are, a decade later, with a car company that is so wildly popular and in the news all the time and worth a hell of a lot of money. Took them a decade to make money. I'm going to give two more examples, then we're going to talk about us. Okay?
And then we're going to talk about how to make it through.
Yeah. These examples I think are really important, because I want to get rid of your self-doubt, because you need to get rid of it. When you wake up in the morning and it seems like you're at the end, you have to keep plowing through it, because that's the only way you're going to end up like these companies ended up. A smaller version of it, perhaps, maybe even up to their standards. Who knows? But you're not going to get anywhere if you wake up in the morning and say, "That's it, I'm done. This is too long. There's too many competitors." Um, I'll tell you a story about a company named Backrub. And Backrub was started in 1996. Uh, started proving itself somewhat successful. Um, and then it went in 2003. They moved to Mountain View, and they changed their name to Google. And it was basically 8-year process before that even started, and they started making money. So in any event, it was a long, arduous road that that took them through a major name change, and a lot of heartache and a lot of growing pains to be just Google it and you can see, right? And then the last example I'm going to use is the example of Airbnb. There's a great chart online. If you look it up, show the history of Airbnb. There's a beautiful chart showing all the places they raised money, all the places they almost went out of money, the fact that they were during the Obama-McCain election, they resorted to selling giant cereal boxes with made up names of the two candidates to try to make enough money to make payroll. They first became profitable in the second half of 2016, and they've been around for a long time before that. And it took them, in spite of the fact that they were already all over the place and already making a lot of traction, it took them to 2016 before they became a profitable company. And you can go look online and you can see that there are thousands of stories like that. Nobody has really started something and was successful from day one and remained successful forever. That just doesn't happen.
All right, Fred. So now that you've told us these examples of people who are very patient, obviously, and and persistent, what would you recommend that people do along this journey to not quit or to keep themselves going forward?
Yeah, I think I'd use the persistence word a lot more than I would use the patience word, because it's hard to be patient when you have this angst and this irritability, and you wake up and you're like, why is this happening to me? One of our board members who sold his company for $300 million was asked in a partner meeting 3 months ago whether or not, and that was the second one. His first company he sold for 100 million, second one for 300 million. He was asked whether or not he ever had worries or sleepless nights or anything, and basically he told everybody that he can't count the number of nights when he would be sitting on his back in his bed in the dark, staring at the ceiling, crying and wondering why he ever tried to do this. So I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be painful. I'm not going to tell you don't worry about it. I'm not going to tell you be patient. I'm going to tell you to be persistent, to just keep trying. That when things look like they're at their bleakest, if you dig a little further, like in the chart that Tessa showed us, if you just keep digging and try a little harder and go a little farther, find your way there.
Oh,
And
yes, this little guy.
and sometimes that involves pivoting. Sometimes it involves changing up your idea. Sometimes the world around you has changed somewhat and you're still in the right space, but you're approaching it in the wrong way. I did that with my company Boxlot, where I changed it from a direct competitor of eBay. I changed it into a technology company. Instead of giving up, I changed it into a technology company that provided the infrastructure that companies like eBay would need to use for a lot of their bidding processes. And I had a successful exit with that company because I hung in there and I changed it. Right now, even with IdeaPros, we're going through a lot of growing pains, and people who have been our partners or are our partners still, especially on the app side of it, know that we had a couple of major disasters, including one app developer that really took us for $1 million and didn't deliver anything. So all of a sudden now we're stuck with all these apps that we have to redevelop again from the ground up, and we've plowed through them, gotten through a lot of them. We're making really good progress, but it's taken a long time. And there's a subset of our partners that are just like, I want my money back, or this is a ripoff, or whatever, when you're sitting there working your butt off trying to move things forward. But there's more and more people who are really happy and get it and understand. But even those that are handed the keys, this journey I just described is about to take place. You're going to go when you have your app and your app launches, when you get your first 1,000 downloads, that's a time to celebrate. And 1,000 is nothing, right? You're not going to be making money at 1,000. In fact, I'll give you one more example. And I think I talked about this just a couple of weeks ago. The company that started and their original app had one picture of a dog and a human foot. That was the very first picture on there. All you can do is like it, and 2 years later, still no profit. 13 employees, bought by Facebook for $1 billion. That was Instagram. You're not going to go out the door and immediately have this cushy lifestyle where you're making a whole bunch of money. It's a real hard journey. It's going to take time and effort and just this continual battle to get further and further. And only the most persistent of us are going to be able to finish that battle. So when you're in that And when things aren't moving fast enough, or when you thought you had a contract with this company for your first sale and they backed out at the last minute, or when you thought you had funding from a group and they changed their mind because of macroeconomic conditions, be frustrated, be upset, but don't blame yourself. Be persistent, because you just have to accept the fact that, wow, if this was really easy, like they say on Instagram, then everybody would be doing it and everybody would be successful and everybody would have these incredible lives and be flying all over the world all year long. But that's not the reality of it. So work hard, follow your dreams, follow your passion, accept the fact that there are going to be major bumps in the road ahead, but be persistent and don't give up, because you can do this. You can do it. It's hard, but you can do it.
I'm just gonna add a couple things to what you said, Fred. I know that was your like closing statement, but I'm just gonna say that a couple of things that I've heard Fred say over and over, and I know are wise words of wisdom from Fred. And that you surround yourself with people who can help you along the process, so that you don't end up hitting your head on the same wall over and over. Well, you're going to do that anyway, but that you can make it past it. And then I know you also say to do a lot of inner work, right? So positive affirmations. I saw Odin say in the chat too, it's like you have to be saying that you have to tell yourself that you can do these things too. Who else is going to cheer you on, right? Are there any other things that you would recommend that you've said over on the official Fred Cary channel, where that people are like mini victories? I remember you talking about that too, and that helps you to keep motivated to keep going on to the next victory.
No, and we have several companies now, and I think Levi was asking like what's the most successful one so far.
Oh yes.
And Levi, to the whole point of my discussion, there's nobody out there right now that's making $1 billion or anything, but there's several companies that are showing some real traction and on that path to making money and being successful and getting customer acceptance. Fritz Toffee, for example, is one that they're like now the number one toffee company in America. They're signing up in stores, 400 stores at a time. They're growing very quickly. It was a little family business that Grandma Fritz was selling out of her restaurant at the counter, and now they're available nationwide and in Canada. We have Raw Beauty Co., who and I had a rough start on things, finding the right manufacturer, finding the right product, finding the right distribution network. She's now going on Amazon, selling a lot of her products. It's really, really starting to work out. You can see her at rawbeautyco.com. Support her. You have the great facial regimen product. I see Grunt, the app Grunt. He is just starting out in one or two areas now in the U.S. to try to get momentum and iron out any bugs. That product is going to do very, very well. We have Pocket Rocket. If you go to gopocketrocket.com, support these people. He is now getting further and further into distribution. He tried an area, I think they're in the Southeast, that getting really, really great feedback on his energy drink that is growing well. I'm in negotiation with Cisco Distribution to get them all over California. They're doing well.
And it's
There are
pocketrocketgo.com. I think you did it the opposite way. I know. I have to put it in the chat. There you go.
So we actually have a press release, I think, coming out today that's going to list a whole bunch of them. And again, think of the journeys that all these people have to go through, and they're at the part of the journey where they're not going to Vegas like FedEx to go bet their last 5,000. But a lot of our entrepreneurs, a lot of all of you as entrepreneurs, don't have $1 million, don't have $10 million, don't have $100 million to go put out in these major advertising things. There are things that can be done pretty inexpensively, and you got to be comfortable with taking little bites and taking a little bit of progress at a time. And as Tessa said, look at those as your micro victories, because the momentum, once it starts, really starts picking up. And that happens when people start talking about your brand. So people talk about when they get their first $1 million, how happy they're going to be. I say when you get your first dollar, that's when you should start expressing your happiness, because that's when you realize people are willing to pay for what you have. And that's the secret formula, that people are willing to pay for what you have. And when you have an app, a lot of times apps start out free, and then later on, once you get that volume, people are paying for advertising to be able to reach that audience, and you can get acquired like Instagram did with zero revenue. So just keep an eye on the ball, keep moving forward, be happy with incremental growth, and help support these IdeaPros companies as well, if you will. Selfishly, he says. Uh,
Well, I think Stephen also said, keep at it. If you can see it, it can happen. I know you said this earlier, Stephen. So this actually aligned perfectly with what Fred just said.
yeah.
That was awesome. And Fred, a lot of people are giving some advice in the chat. So I just want to take a quick second to show some of them real quick. Like Odin, keep picking up the phone and showing up. I love that, because you get a lot. You have to go out there and market your business. It's not just going to happen. If you build it, they will come is not true. So you got to keep doing it. And if you get some no's, then just chalk them off as like, hey, that's a not right now, or
Yep.
yeah, it's not a fit at the moment, and then maybe it will be later. Kelly Reed says, keep focused and stay positive. And of course, Stephen's advice. And if you guys have any other advice you want to put in there, I would love to share your advice on how you stay positive, and not just positive, just keep going. It's not about always being happy along this process, because it's not happy. And Fred and I were talking about this, every time I grow or something new in my business, it's painful, and you have to learn a new way of doing things. So you're not always going to be happy, but you can always keep moving forward.
Yeah, and Julie says she takes time to reflect at the end of every
Yes.
day for 30 minutes to focus on, you know,
I have hers up here too.
reflect the perfect. Yeah. And again, folks, the reality is this is arduous. We're all in this together. And I'm not just talking about IdeaPros partners, all of us as entrepreneurs, we're in this together. We need to support each other. When you see a new startup, no matter where you are in your own entrepreneurial journey, and no matter whether you're an IdeaPros partner or an entrepreneur on their own, support each other. We're Entrepreneurs are a group of extraordinary people. And the only way to really make it is by doing extraordinary things and doing them over and over again. You're not like the rest of the world. You are the people that are making the changes happen in the world. So go out and make changes and be persistent.
I love it. Thank you so much, Fred. We will see you next week. And I'm going to go ahead and let you fall off, and I'm going to chat over there with everyone. I know we have a couple of our partners who put their links in. So I'm going to show off a couple websites. So Pocket Rocket Go, I know I told you guys about this one, but go check it out so you can see that product. And I have it and I love it. Actually doesn't give you the jittery feeling that caffeine does. Wish I could buy it in giant cases. So in fact, I'm sure they're going to start having subscription models soon, I hope. I know we have Sage Scheduler, and I've got to find your post right now. Sage Scheduler has so many followers and just that audience growth. In fact, one of the topics that we're going to be coming up into is audience growth and social media, how to brand and keep your brand consistent on social media. So that's coming up along with influencer, how to get influencers, how to find influencers, how to get them, and how to leverage them so you're not spending a ton of money. I mean, it's a different way of spending your advertising dollars. I can't find the Sage Scheduler one, but I will see. Okay, so Sage Scheduler, at least I have this. I know he had his numbers on there. We have Sage Scheduler is an app, and I'm cannot wait for this app to come out. It is so my like style of doing things. Cannot wait for that to come out. And then Get Swizzy with Vanessa. I know we have those wipes, and I'm going to get some as soon as I can so I can show off the beautiful packaging. And obviously, if you guys have any topics or anything that you're going through, challenges that you're going through, please let us know. You can put it in the chat. I want to create content for you each week and get the experts in that help you guys through those obstacles. And that's my whole purpose for being here every Friday, is to help you to do business better, so that as an entrepreneur, you have the support and confidence that you need to be able to keep going when the going gets tough and you're right there and you're just really tired and want to give up. You can do it, guys. So we'll see you all next Friday. It's every Friday at noon Pacific time. And you can follow us. You can hit the bell to get reminders when we go live, or you can use the links in the post to get reminders by text or even submit questions. So we'll see you guys next week. Have a blessed week. Bye.